your patience and cooperation. Boarding will begin in a few moments.
Hello YouTube, and welcome, Phriq here, and after months and months of grueling anticipation, the wait has finally come to an end, the hiatus is over, and I am here to make you some more Let's Play Flight Simulator X FSPassengers videos for you. As you can see, we're sitting inside a Cessna 172. It is not the default Cessna 172, but it is the one by Carenado. You're probably asking yourself, however, why are you sitting in a Cessna 172? It is one of the most boring and common aircraft known to men. You flew the default one to death in season 1. Why are you flying it again? Well, it's because I have not flown in a very long time, and I'm sure I'm going to be doing a lot of dumb, dangerous, and stupid flights, and I want to be doing that in something that I'm a little more familiar with, such as a Cessna 172. So that's why I'm going to be flying a Cessna 172, but however, have no fear, I'm not going to be flying it long. I do want to get into some bigger and better aircraft, but I just need to get reacclimated to flying and to the game. Therefore, I'm going to be doing my first couple of flights in a Cessna 172. Speaking of my first couple of flights, I need to create a company in order to do those flights. So I'm going to go to create new company. As you can see, I don't have any defined in the database, which means none exist. So let's create new company. This first company that we're going to create is going to be Phriq Airlines, the same name as all my other companies. Foundation date, we're going to go 1 November as always, in homage to one of my favorite bands, the early November. The year, we're not going to found it in 1900 because we should probably do it in a year that flight was actually invented. So 2010 sounds like good choice because this is close to 2016 as we can get. It is going to be founded by that horrible pilot, that horrible YouTuber, Phriq-O-Pher. You know, that guy that takes 8-month hiatuses and crashes into trees and things like that. Our identifier is going to be Papa Hotel Quebec. We're not going to be choosing any from the IATA list, so let's go ahead and hit next step. This is going to be a custom setting. I don't want to do a scenario setting because I don't want victory conditions right there, which means I don't want to be able to win Flight Simulator X FSPassengers. So we're just going to do custom. I just want to fly. Economic mode, we're going to have money, but we're not going to start with $70 million because I'm a smaller company that just basically does GA aircraft, so we're gonna do $3 million. That sounds pretty good because Cessna 172 is only about $200,000. I am going to be flying some bigger aircraft, like I said, eventually. I'd even like to go into like a Beechcraft King Air or something like that. However, chances are that's not going to be happening right away. I'll maybe go, if I'm doing multi-engine, it's probably going to be a bigger Beechcraft Bonanza or maybe like a Piper Seneca 5 or something like that. However, that's in the future, and all of those are under $3 million, so I'm just going to keep it at $3 million. I'm also going to do fleet income, which means if I buy a new aircraft but don't sell the Cessna 172, it will still generate revenue for me. Career mode, we're going to enable that, which means that in order to fly a multi-engine aircraft, my pilot has to be rated for a multi-engine aircraft. How do I get that? I have to just fly. So you can see I'm a student pilot right now. Then if I get 5 hours, I'll be a private pilot. 12 hours, I'll be an instrument-rated pilot. Then I could fly into clouds and things like that. Commercial pilot, that's when we can start carrying passengers, but apparently we're going to do that right away, so we're just going to do things illegally. Instant record of flight means if I were to crash into a tree or a cow or a school or anything like that, I can't just erase that flight and say, I did not like that, I'm not going to publish that to YouTube, that didn't happen. No, this means as soon as anything happens, it is automatically recorded, so if I crash into a tree or a cow or whatever, you guys will see it. I will post it to YouTube. So regardless of what happens and how I crash, it is going to be posted. And to make things a little more enjoyable for crashes, we're going to have failures in there, easy to hard. So that means anything from like brakes locking up on landing to my engine going out and me just gliding to my death. We're going to have 5% chance of failures, which means roughly 1 out of every 20 flights we should have something, but hopefully they're not huge. That sounds like a good default, so we're going to go with it. So we're going to finish and create company, listen to some beautiful music, yes, and now we're going to create a pilot. The pilot's also going to be the founder, that horrible YouTuber that does nothing right, Phriq-O-Pher. Birthday! How would you guys like to know my real birthday? I will give it to you. It is 23 May 1984. So you can do whatever you want with that information. You can see my birthday's coming up, buy me a present, or you can steal my identity, or more so just look and find out my age of 31, almost 32, and go, dude, why is this lame-o 31-year-old making YouTube videos? What a lame-o. Do whatever you want. I'm going to hit create. Now we have our pilot. Close. So now we're in an airplane that we have stolen, we do not own, so we need to buy it. So we're gonna go into company manager, company aircraft. We can see that there's no planes in there, so we gotta buy current F's plane, which is gonna be the Cessna 172 Skyhawk. So let's go ahead and buy that. You can see that we can buy a brand new one for $208,000, or we can get a used one with more hours for more money. That sounds stupid, so I'm not even gonna consider that. For $20,000 less, we can get one with 513 hours. The actual state is 97%. And if we look, the aircraft may be bad because the owner was not good at maintaining it. So we'll probably not go with that. This one is $174,000, relatively cheap, as you can see right here. It seems like an excellent choice. It's got 700 hours, and its actual state is 100. However, they don't know the owner, whether he was good or bad, but it could be a surprise. Maybe he was good. We're just going to go with it anyway. We like surprises. Mountain Dew Baja Blast is finally back, so that's what I am drinking. But my throat was a little sore because I'm talking loud and fast and annoying, I'm sure. Aircraft maintenance, we're going to look in there, see that we don't have any aircraft to maintain because, well, it was at 100% when we bought it. So we're good. We have a Cessna 172 Skyhawk. Let's go ahead and close that. Before we go into checklist now, let's start getting some passengers and flights. Before we do a flight, I'm going to tell you where we are. If you can look, you can see a bunch of trees. That gives you no information, but you can see some hills, maybe mountains out there. Let's look where we are. I'm going to pull up SkyVector, and as you can see, we are in the Pacific Northwest. Right here is Seattle, and I did not want to fly out of Seattle. Eventually, I'm going down to Portland because I have a friend named Darren Kent who also has a YouTube video, which you should check out. He made a Flight Simulator X video, and is planning to make more, I believe, and he's way better than I am, so you should definitely check him out. I'm going to post a link to him in my description box below. Definitely check him out because he is a good guy, but he wanted me to fly by Portland, so I'm gonna do that. But before I do that, I wanted to go, I was like, if I'm that close to the very end of America, I'm gonna go there on the Pacific Northwest side, but I'm not gonna fly out of Seattle. That's cliche. So I started looking around and I found this place right here, but this has military aircraft and it is a restricted airport. I can't fly there. So for realism's sake, I'm not gonna do that. I wanted to fly right here, but there's no airport. I started looking around and I saw, oh, what about this place? Port Angeles. And I started thinking, wow, that name sounds familiar. Of course, that's because they mention it in Twilight. I wonder if Forks is real. So I started zooming in really crazily and appearing in Russia? Alaska? Why am I up there? Darn it, SkyVector. Anyway, Port Angeles, and I started looking, and then all of a sudden I found this, and it is Forks. The place that Twilight was based on is a real place. They even have a sawmill. This Quileute place was also mentioned, and also La Push. This is where they were jumping off cliffs, not to their death, but into water. Anyway, yes, I'm going to be flying out of Forks. That's the whole point of my story. We're going to be giving some Twitards, or whatever Twilight fans like to be called, a tour flight of the Twilight land. We're going to minimize that, and we're going to start our flight. So, start flight. No parking brake, so we can't start flight. I'm going to throw out my yokes because I don't like them, and you don't need them to actually control a plane. I'm going to put on my parking brake. I am going to open my door. And now let's go into FSPassengers, start a flight. There are 2 passengers who are ready and willing to fly with us. A company with a reputation of 66%. How we even have a 66% reputation, I don't know. I mean, I've started a company before, but I crashed into a tree. This doesn't make any sense to me. There's going to be 2 passengers, though. Let's look at them. We have Millard Manning and Cassandra Otero, 41 and 63 years old. They seem pretty old to be giant Twilight fans, but whatever. I don't really care as long as they pay me. We're going to set this flight type as a flight tour. As you can see, we must land at the same airport. Landing are limited to a maximum number of 15 passengers. However, my aircraft only holds 3 additional besides me, and I suck, so only 2 people want to fly with me. Income based on flight time, which means the longer I fly, the more people pay me. And it should be at least 10 minutes, but less than 3 hours. If I fly 3 hours for a tour flight, shoot me now. That seems ridiculous. Set flight type. We don't need a set destination because we are landing at the same airport by definition of a tour flight. Flight aircraft settings, this is where I can turn off certain penalties and things like that. So one of them is this flaps penalty. In a Cessna 172, you do not need a takeoff during flaps. However, FSPassengers gives you a penalty of 300 points if you do not use flaps during your takeoff. There are some aircraft like that. However, most aircraft still do require flaps. Here you could change it individually per flight, whether you want to get penalized for that or not. However, I don't like the flaps penalty in general. So I went into my config file, which you can see right here is in FSPassengers, under program files. Well, it's on my C drive, FSPassengers, or FSX, FSPassengers, config folder, more options. And if you open that up, you can see that there's a bunch of penalties here that you can disable. Now, most of these are real logical things to have in there if you're going for realism, like a door check. I don't want to get penalized for flying with my door open. Or I would want to get penalized because that would be a stupid thing. However, this flap check right here, you can see that it has it toggled to 1 as opposed to 0. That means that it's disabled. So I will not get penalized for flaps. Let's go ahead and minimize that. Enough talking about that nonsense. 2 passengers in, 1 pilot, a partridge and a pear tree. I don't know the saying. We have enough fuel. We have 100% fuel. Aircraft load is good. They don't need any luggage because they're landing at the same place, but I'm going to give them 5 pounds of luggage because I'm going to provide them with a 5-pound bag of gummy bears for the flight. We don't need help. We don't need to cancel. Okay, real-time load. It's going to take 2 minutes to load these people. 2 passengers were taken off with 2,255 pounds. Fuel, 299 pounds of fuel. Our never exceed speed is going to be 159. I could set my rotate speeds and things like that, but I am not going to do that. So I am just going to hit start flight. Parking brake is on. Let's get into some checklists now that we have people coming on. Pull over my nice little tablet here that I'm using for checklists. That's right, no more paper copies of checklists. We're going high tech now. And the person who is coming on the plane has a cold and we're going to get sick and die. Pre-flight inspection, we're going to assume that is complete, but this is where you would walk around the plane, some fuel out of the wings to make sure there's no contaminants. Look at the wheels, look at everything, the rivets, blah, 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 blah. As you can see, it is a nice orange Cessna 172. I went with this color because the blue one was kind of ugly and the red one, well, I'm just not a big fan of red. Plus, the NHL hockey playoffs are going on. The Philadelphia Flyers were on, who have the head coach of my favorite college hockey team, University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux. However, they're not in the playoffs anymore, so this cannot be a Philadelphia Flyers plane. Enough talking about nonsense. Let's go back to the checklists. Seatbelt, shoulder harnesses, adjust and locked. We're going to just assume that that is done. Fuel selector, we want to make sure it is on both, which we can see right there it is. Avionics, we're going to have that off. Brakes, we want to make sure it's tested and set. Well, we're going to test that on the taxi, so we're not going to do that right now, but it is set. Circuit breakers, you can see that they're all pushed in. Stop laughing at me trying to do my checklists. Before starting engine checklist is complete, so let's go into the starting engine checklist. You can see I pushed in my mixture all the way. Carburetor heat right here is cold, and it's pushed in. Fuel selector, no. Master switch, we're going to go ahead and turn that on. Boop, boop. Beacon, we're also going to turn that on, even though it doesn't say to turn it on in the checklists. By the way, the checklists I'm using are the Carenado checklist that came with the aircraft. I never found a Cessna 172 checklist online because I am lazy, so you can't follow along with me. I am sorry. I'm just using this one, but I'll try to find one where I can post a link to it later on so you can follow along with me. Master switch on, prime as required. It says 2 to 6 pumps for a cold engine, so we're just going to do 3. Propeller area, we want to make sure that is clear. We're going to go all clear, all clear. We're going to crock our throttle about 1/8 of an inch, which you can see I pushed it in right there. And our ignition switch, we're going to turn that to the on position. You can see that our propeller is spinning. Our temperatures for our oil should start going up, which you can see they are. Same with our pressure, our suction gauge. Everything seems to be working. Everything leveled out. Good, great, grand, we are good. Oil pressure, check, done. This plane does not, or this checklist does not have a taxi checklist, so it just goes straight into the before takeoff. I'm just gonna go into that and I'm gonna stop halfway to start taxiing. So it says parking brake set, cabin doors and windows closed. So we can close our cabin doors since they are on the plane. We're also gonna turn on our seatbelt sign. Even though it's a Cessna 172, I just turn my head and say, put on your seatbelts, dudes and ladies. Oh, where was I? Flight controls, we want to make sure they're free and correct. However, I don't have any yokes to fly this aircraft, so we are just going to assume that is done. Flight instruments, we're going to set those. So we're going to turn on our avionics switch right here. We're going to put our comm channel, the first one, to 122.9, which is going to be the FORC CTAF frequency. This is a pretty crappy airport. It is not an international airport. It is not a regional airport. But if I go down here to AirNav, you can see that it is just an airport. It is open to the public, however, it is a very small airport. It's only at 300 feet elevation. If I look on the side here, I could find it on the map, find the lat long and stuff like that with MapQuest, but no one uses MapQuest. Plus, I found it on SkyVector, which means I also don't need this sectional chart down here. Aerial photo, you can see it's just got the one runway, either 2 or 4, and the one taxiway. There's no airport diagram to show me how to taxi because it is so small. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. If I can't, I should not even be flying even a simulator because I'm an idiot. But that's a little about this Forks Airport. Where were we? So flight instruments are set. We got Forks CTAF. Next thing we need to do is set an ASOS information, or ATIS. However, this airport doesn't have ATIS. However, that Quileute Airport, which was right here, does. It's only about 10 miles away, so we're going to go there. Not go there, but we're going to use that one for the CTAF frequency. So I need to be at not CTAF, ATIS. Sorry, I can't even talk. 13522. Let's switch to it and get some information. All right. Switching back to COM 1, we have our information. 29990 is what we need to set up. Our altimeter to, so 29992. Boop, boop. There we are. We can see it's 300 feet. That matches what we saw in AirNav, so we are at the correct altimeter setting for barometric pressure. The next thing is the engine run-up. However, we're not going to be doing the engine run-up right now on account that we haven't even taxied to where we're going to be doing our takeoff. So let's do that. I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm also going to pull up our ATC window, resize that here a little bit. And we're going to select a runway 4 taking off. Winds were 062 at 5. So we're going to be running taking off on runway 4, which is going to be the most into the wind runway. So we're going to select that and we're going to announce our taxi. Alright, with that said, I got to find my feet on the rudder pedals. We're going to hit period to turn off our parking brake, and I'm going to look up and I'm going to start giving myself a little bit of throttle and turning. While I do this, I should probably turn on my taxi light. So now we have a taxi light. We should be legal. Do a nice little U-turn right there. Don't want to go too fast. And you can see over there was 4 and 22. That means runway 4 is going to be over here. So let's start turning to our left. What a beautiful day in Washington. I'm using real-world weather, however, it is historical weather from yesterday. I'll just pull it up right now. You can see that I'm using Active Sky Next now instead of Rex for my weather. But I'm using historical weather, yesterday's weather, on account that today it is cloudy with clouds at 400 feet. 100 feet above us, we would die, basically, because there's mountains, and I don't know where to fly. So we're using yesterday's weather where it is nice and clear and not rainy and not cloudy. Pull back my throttle some, start to hit some brakes, get ready for this turn. Right there, you can see we're on runway 4. And here is the hold short line. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold short. Because the wind is marginal, I'm not going to turn the aircraft into the wind. I am just going to go down here, put on my parking brake, and let's do the run-up. Mixture, we want to make sure it is fully rich below 3,000 feet, but since we're only at 300 feet, we're going to have that fully rich, which it is. Elevator trim, we're going to set that for takeoff, which you can see down here. It pretty much is set for takeoff. There's no notch to tell me where takeoff is, so hopefully this is good. I really have no idea. I think, actually, it should be more of a nose up, around a 5 or something like that. I don't know. I'm just going to have it there. Hopefully that works out. It doesn't tell us what it should be. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our throttle up to about 1700 RPM, which you can see the tachometer right there. Starting to level off at about close to 1700, close enough. I'm going to get rid of this ATC window. Next thing I'm going to do is turn my magneto switch. Not that way. There we go, and we'll see a little dip. That shows that the left magneto is working. Do it again, and we'll see another little dip, and our right magneto is working. Put that back to both. Also, what I'm going to do is pull out my carb heat to turn it on, and we'll see another dip in the tachometer. That is because the carb heat is working. Excellente. We can also look to make sure our temperature is in the green, our oil pressure is in the green, that our suction gauges are working, and everything seems to be working, which it does seem to be working. Also, our brakes were working because, well, I used them during the taxi. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my throttle back again. Suction gauge, check. I've already checked that. Where am I on my checklist? Dang it, tablet, why did you turn off? All right, we're back. Engine instruments, suction gauge, avionics power switch. It wants us to turn it off and then set the radios. That doesn't make any sense. Autopilot, I don't have that. Radios are set. Air conditioner is off. Flashing beacon, let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off our taxi light. We're going to turn on our landing light. Our nav light is coming on. And also, I'm just going to turn on pitot heat. Why not? There are some clouds out there, and if there's any moisture in the air, I don't want my stuff to freeze. Actually, let's do this. Let's blah blah. There we go. We're at 60 degrees. You know what? Pitot heat's staying off. I'm not going to use the extra juice on it right now. We're not going to freeze flying at 2,000 feet or 3,000 feet. Throttle friction lock, adjust. Well, I don't have that, so I'm not going to be using that. Brakes release, and that means we can start taking off. But I'm going to look out the window and just verify that there's no planes coming in. It's kind of hard to see out there. Quick flip around this way. Just make sure there are no planes coming in. I do not see any, so what we can do is we're going to pull up our ATC window and we're going to announce a takeoff, and we're going to depart to the west. So we're going to start heading towards the ocean.
Sierra 18 traffic, Papa Hotel, Quebec 54, taking off, runway 4, west, departure.
Give myself some throttle, turn off my parking brake, and we're going to start going on to the runway. Passenger seatbelt sign is on. They have their 5 pounds of gummy bears that they can be eating for the takeoff. Turn on to the runway. Beautiful. Takeoff. Wing flaps up. Carburetor heat cold. Throttle fully open. Elevator control. Lift nose wheel at 55 knots. That's going to be our rotate speed. Climb speed is going to be 70 to 80 knots. En route climb then is going to be 70 to 85 knots. Full open on the throttle and fully rich mixture until we get above 3,000 feet. So here we go. Give it some throttle. Not much wind, it's making us turn a little bit. Use my rudders to correct where we are. There's 55 knots. We're going to start pulling back. There we go. Trim. I did have to have more nose up trim. There we go. We're sitting at about 60 knots. We're going a little slower, so we're going to push the nose down just a titch. Gain some airspeed. There we go. Passengers are not happy because there is turbulence. They are frightened. You can also see that we're kind of taking off to the east, so we're going to be turning around here to start heading west. Mountains all around us, turbulence all around us, but we're still climbing. We're good. Keep flying west. En route climb speed 70 to 85 knots. We're at about 80. I'm satisfied with that. And our mixture is still fully rich. We're going to start to level out our wings. There we go. Maybe. Oh, it's actually quite bumpy out. Whatever. Airspeed is fluctuating a little bit because of that bumping, but we're getting a little better climb now. Out there you can see the ocean. Beautiful, beautiful, lovely little ocean. Let's turn our head and look around. Right there is where we took off. There's that runway 4. We're going to be going into that. A lot of trees here and some mountains, or some elevation, I should say. That's not really a mountain, but some elevation out there. So, just something to be cognizant for our landing. Flying west. Still climbing. I'm probably going to go to about 3,000 feet. We're just kind of bouncing all over the place. Whatever. Right here, I believe, is at Quilluet. Let's see if we can look at it. Maybe. I'm trying to zoom. There. Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, that looks like a runway. That's probably it. So that's right there. That's that location, that airport where we got our ATIS information from. However, it did not mention anything about turbulence. While we climb, I suppose this is a good time where I could talk to you about my new setup that I am using. Ladies and gentlemen, I am using a different setup. My audio should sound different, hopefully. It should sound a little better. Basically, I went to school for audio engineering and also computer science. I was a double major. So I was never using any of that information or that knowledge in my previous videos because I was lazy. I was using like a crappy $5 mic for like webcam Skyping type stuff. But now I am actually using a Shure KSM. KSM 27 is the mic that I'm using. It's a vocal mic that I use for recording music. And it's going into a Profire 2626 audio interface by M Audio. I also have a DigiDesign 002 box rack for Pro Tools and stuff, but I use Adobe Audition mostly, so that is why I'm using this Profire 2626. However, I'm going to be leaving for work for a little while. Whoa, I got to watch my altitude. I wanted to level off at 3,000, and here I am climbing way too high. Anyway, I have to leave for work and do some training, so I'm going to be using, for that, not all of this fancy recording equipment, because I don't want to take that with me. So instead, I'm probably going to use a Blue Yeti microphone, simply because it acts as an interface by itself. It's USB, and I should still get relatively decent vocal quality, hopefully. Also, I'm using two computers right now. I'm recording my audio on a second computer. It is my desktop that I use for recording. And then I'm just simply running the game and some things on this computer. Pulled back my throttle. Lowering. Actually, I just want to speed up. So I'm going to give myself some nose down, but more throttle so we can get some better airspeed going. There we go. Want to get to about 100 knots in airspeed is, I think, what I'm going to kind of cruise at. Kind of leveling off there at about 3,000 feet. That's about what I wanted. Gaining a little altitude there. Nose down, speed up a little more. We're not fully open. We're at about 75% on the throttle right now. We're just going to kind of hang out here. I think this is looking pretty nice. If we look out our right window, you can see that beautiful lake up there. That is this lake right here, this Dickey Lake and Ozette Lake. They look like they're the same lake, but apparently maybe this part is different, is my guess, unless this is Dickey Lake. I have no idea. But that's where we're flying. We could also see those power lines down there. Those are going to help guide us home. We're probably going to fly just out to the ocean, to that La Push area, and then come back. So there's that beautiful lake out there. Look out our left wing. There you can see that Quilluet airport thingy, and back there is Forks, and you can see right there those power lines that I was talking about that are just going to kind of guide us home. That's what we're going to be using. What was I talking about? I'm all over the place with what I'm talking about. microphones and stuff. I do have 2 computers, so like I said, my one is recording my audio. Also on that, I have some flight tools like SkyVector pulled up on half of the screen, so I can actually see where I'm flying and do some stuff like that, but I can also pull it up like you saw on my computer down here. Also, instead of using Rex Weather, I talked about this, I am now going to be using Active Sky Weather because every review I have read says it is better. So we're going to be using Active Sky Next Weather. Thus far, it seems to be working very nicely. Also, I am not using Action anymore to record my videos. I tried to make a flight and it got super choppy, just kind of like my very last flight of Season 2 did. So instead, we're going to be using Shadow Play, I believe it is called. Shadow Play by NVIDIA. And thus far, again, it seems to be working quite well. As you can see, we're just slightly above, like 50 feet above 3,000 feet. We're also at a nice 100 knots cruising speed, which is exactly what we wanted to go to, so I'm not flying nearly as horrible as I thought I would be. Out there is that beautiful lake. It's kind of really nice scenery out here, but then you can see that we're flying straight towards the ocean, and you can see how you could easily get very disoriented if you're flying into the ocean, because the ocean color is very similar to the sky color. It's hard to see a horizon, hard to tell if you're climbing or dipping, and it would be very you could get disoriented very quickly. Let me just say that. To me, it's almost a little more freaky than actual just like mountain flying or something like that. Looking to our left, you can see this little river right here, and you can see that there over here are going to be some cliffs. Well, oh good, more turbulence. Get all scared, why don't you? Probably the wind coming from the ocean onto the land and causing some updrafts or something like that. That would be my guess. Good old weather. I'm going to start turning to the south now some. Talk about this La Push area. Whoops. Which is just over here. Looks like there's some cliffs here. Maybe they were jumping into the ocean there, but I believe this is that swimming area where they were in the movies Twilight, where Edward would not want to go, but Jacob was. Also, if you remember, there's that one where the vampires wouldn't cross the river, but the werewolves would? Or the werewolves wouldn't cross the river, but the vampires did. Maybe that's this area too. I don't know. I'm not really that big of a Twilight fan. Alright, we're going to start turning our wings level again. Right there. Turbulence has kind of subsided again. Nice and level right there. You can see we're still at 100 knots, and our turn actually dipped us to a good altitude. We're right at 3,000, so I'm pretty happy with that. Seatbelt sign is still on. What else can I talk about? I talked about my new audio setup, talked about the new weather that we're using, the new recording software that we're using. Hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully it sounds better, it's probably going to look the same, but I don't know. I'm just trying to do whatever I can do to make things a little better for y'all. I'm going to quick take a drink of my Baja Blast. Because I'm going to be traveling for work some, I'm not going to be recording right away while I'm doing that. Therefore, I'm going to try to get some pre-recorded flights. So if you give me flight suggestions or something like that, unfortunately, I probably won't be able to utilize them right away. And that's because I'm going to try to record another 2 or 3 flights that I can kind of post into the upcoming weeks while I'm busy training with work. As you can see, I'm slightly starting to turn back to the east some. Flying over the ocean at a nice 3,000 foot altitude, kind of looking around. Here's that La Push area. It's kind of nice flying this coastline. I almost don't want to go into the Portland area. Sorry, Darren Kent. I might just be a bush pilot in Alaska, because it seems pretty nice out here. One place I really want to fly is, more turbulence, is in Alaska. I think it would be amazing to be a bush pilot in Alaska. Every time I fly, my mom gets terrified. She thinks that a plane, if it loses an engine, just turns into a rock and you plummet to your death. Where in Alaska, yeah, you probably don't have as good of a chance of survival because it's a lot of trees and mountains and crap like that. But where I live, it is nothing but flat, open prairie. So basically, if I lose an engine, I just glide and land anywhere because it's all farmland. All right. Here is that Quileute. If any of you are from there or know how to pronounce it, I am sorry if I am butchering the name. Over there at Forks, we're just going to start heading back. Out here you can see some mountains and things like that. The elevation gets up to about 8,000 feet over there. So if I pull up Sky Vector again, you can see that we have some decent terrain that comes around. My next flight, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is just do a short flight from Forks to Port Angeles. And then after that, I am probably going to zoom out here. Maybe fly from Port Angeles, come around here into the Seattle area, just because I kind of want to look at Seattle. I've never been there, but it looks like an awesome area. Fly down there and maybe go to like this Olympia or something like that. From there, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to Portland, where I can fly around that region for my buddy Darren Kent. By the way, if you listen or noticed, I haven't changed my frequencies or anything. I haven't contacted ATC or anything like that. We're just doing a tour flight, so I really don't need to contact them. I don't need a flight following or anything like that. There is no major airspace around here where I need to be in contact with the approach or anything like that either. So I am just doing a VFR flight, looking around to make sure I'm deconflicted with other aircraft, and we're going to be going in to land at Forks again. I'm going to pull up my checklist as well. Cruise, the power, it says between 2200 and 2700 RPM. As you can see right here, we're at about 23.7, which is right in that area. No more than 75% of our power is recommended. I'm basically at 75% throttle, according to my throttle quadrant. Elevator and rudder trim is adjusted, hence why we're flying in straight and level flight. Mixture is full rich unless you're above 3,000 feet, but we're just at 3,000 feet, so we're just going to leave it as is. I'm actually going to start pulling back my throttle slightly because I want to go into a little bit of a descent because we're going to be going into Forks. So let's just go into the descent checklist. Mixture adjust for smooth operation, full rich for idle power. Well, we're just going to be full rich. Power as desired, carburetor heat as desired. We're not going to be using carburetor heat. We never got cold enough where it's going to freeze or anything like that, so we should be good. I'm actually going to start turning. We're just going to do a straight run-in to Forks because there's no other aircraft around here. Basically, the whole area is my playground right now. Before landing, seatbelts, harnesses secure, fuel selector valve at both, which it still is. I haven't touched that. Mixture, rich, carburetor heat on. Apply full heat before closing throttle, so let's go ahead and do that. Autopilot off, air conditioner off. All right, so we're gonna use the cargo heat. I'm following my checklists. You can see that I am slowly descending, not a whole lot. I'm just pulling back my throttle. We're gonna keep that airspeed though, because you trim for airspeed, your throttle for altitude. So I'm just pulling back my altitude or my throttle some so I can slowly start a descent. Unfortunately, Forks does not have any PAPI or VASI lights. Therefore, we're going to be doing this the old all-natural way. What comm am I on? Comm 1, nearest airport list. Forks. That's what I want. Select a runway for landing. We're going to be selecting runway 4. We're going to announce a full stop landing, but first let's announce our position. And we're coming in way hot and high. I'm actually going to slow myself down some too. We have a lot to descend. Slowing ourselves down. Let's put on some flaps. That'll help slow us down as well. And now we're starting to dip down to gain some of that airspeed. I'm already going to go into my second detent of flaps as well. Hopefully this is not a horrible landing, but I have not landed in a very long time. I'm dipping really fast now. I don't want to give my guys popped eardrums or anything like that. Usually you don't want to descend more than about 700 feet per minute because it can get uncomfortable with the pressure differences. Even between 3,000 feet and 0 feet, it can get a little uncomfortable.
Sierra 18 traffic, Papa Hotel, Quebec 5-4 is on final, runway 4 to land.
Good thing we're getting a bunch of turbulence right before we land. That sounds awesome. Also, I announced that I was on final. I'm trying to find my rudder pedals. I can't see my feet. And I think they're off slightly from center from my body. We are still really high. And they're scared. I'm going to get rid of this ATC window so I can actually see. Centering ourselves up a little more with the runway now. As you can see, we're still pretty high, but I think I can make it. If not, I'll just announce a go around and fly the pattern a little bit, but I don't think we need to do that. Good old turbulence during landing. That's got to make everybody nice and happy. I wish I could see if I was on a glide slope or anything like that. Not seeing anything like that, but I think we're doing relatively good. We need to stay above these trees. Kind of centering ourselves up. Descending, we're still pretty high. Holy cow. This is more like a short field landing. We've been above the glide slope, most definitely, this whole time, but whatever. Is that water? A river running through the runway? Alright. Pull back. There we go. Give it a little bit of throttle. A little bit. Flare. Flare. We're down and halfway through the runway. Oh, slow down, slow down. That was a horrible landing. I came in hot and high. But we are off. So I'm going to pull up that ATC window. I was just about to announce a go around, but I figured I had it. And we did. But that was a pretty bad landing. Like I said, I have not flown in a while, and the combination of me not flying in a long time and that of no PAPI or VASI lights as any visual aid for the glide slope made it a little bad. We're going to announce that we're clear of the runway.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 5-4 is clear of the runway.
We're just going to stop here real quick. Just hold the brakes. We pulled out our throttle. I'm going to turn on my taxi light, turn off my landing light, go to my checklist, just see where we're at. Landing, normal landing, we're at 60 to 70 knots, wing flaps as desired, which they were. Airspeed 55 to 60 knots with flaps down, which I believe I was. Touchdown main wheels first, which we did. Landing roll, lower nose wheel gently, which I believe we did. And parking minimum required. Braking minimum required. You don't want to brake heavily. I had to brake a little harder than I needed to because it was kind of a short field landing almost. Basically is what we did. We're also going to put our wing flaps back up. After landing, wing flaps up, carburetor heat is going back to the cold position. And next thing is securing the airplane, so we just need to taxi, so let's just start taxiing back. Gonna turn off my nav light as well, which is right there. Keep the beacon on. Gonna close the ATC window for a little while. Passenger satisfaction is at 97%. That's good. I'm happy with that. Given the fact that there was some turbulence, especially coming in on the landing. That horrible, horrible landing where I was terribly high. Like I said, I was going to do a bunch of dumb, dangerous, and stupid things, and my landing was one of them. I'm holding up to my word. I don't want to lie to you guys, so I'm just going to be honest about the horribleness of my piloting skills. Slow down so we're not getting too fast. Wow, I'm gonna need to drink some water. I forgot how much this uses your vocal cords when you are trying to be nice and energetic for you and doing a lot of talking. All right, let's find a nice landing spot, or parking spot. That place takes us to the fuel, so I'm just gonna basically go to where I was. Not there. Believe it was right here, so we're just gonna start turning right here. This may not have been the exact same parking spot, but there's no other planes here, so I don't think it really matters. Oh, I didn't mean to stop. Fail on my part. There we go. There. I believe we're nice and centered. Start slowing down. Should start to see the yellow line on the bottom left, about right there. Probably came over it a little bit. Oh, that's pretty close. Good enough parking for me. Good enough for government work. Isn't that the saying? So with that said, we're going to go ahead and hit the brakes. Parking brakes are set. We're going to secure the airplane. Avionics switch, we're just going to turn that to the off position right there. Mixture idle cutoff, we'll pull that back. Engine is shutting off right now. Ignition switch, we're going to turn that to the, not that way. When you're rotating a mouse wheel, you can't tell if you're doing it the right way. But now that is at the off side. We're also going to turn on our battery and alternator switches. Also, I never turned off my taxi lights. Those are going off right now. Landing lights, or beacon light, excuse me, we're going to keep that on. So next time we start the aircraft, it is on. Throttle trim, we're going to kind of put that to the takeoff location. Needed more nose up last time, so I'm going to have it about right there. And I'm going to hit Shift E to open my door. Passengers are onboarding the plane. Time remaining 30 seconds, and then we'll be able to look and see how we did. Hopefully we don't get docked too much for that landing. I don't know if the game will register me coming in pretty high and hot on that one. We'll find out. Engine failures, I'm done with my checklist because next stuff is emergency failures, so I don't need to worry about any of that right now because we did not have any of that. 1 second left. They are unboarded, so let's go ahead and we just keep the door open and end this flight. So flights, end flight. Mode realistic flight was already registered. Again, that was because I cannot go back. Like I said, everything I do has to be recorded. We were only airborne for 18 minutes. Flight time was a 2740 block. Landing speed 52 knots, so just a little under what we needed to be under, or we needed to be at 55. We were at 52. Close enough. That was a nice landing though. Kiss. I thought I came in a little harder than that. Exceptional flight 100%. That's good. We made about $3,400. They paid us a lot to go on this Twilight tour. Considering that the flight was perfect, ticket prices are low, passengers believe that our reputation should be 100%. So we went up to 65.38, which is a 0.38% increase. That's pretty nice. This was a perfect flight. We made 300 points. We made a very smooth landing, perfect flight, no problems, and very satisfied passengers, and extreme weather conditions during approach, but a safe landing with satisfied passengers. I'm assuming they are talking about the turbulence that we experienced. Also, there was one penalty disabled. That disabled penalty was my flaps penalty because I did not use my flaps on takeoff. But I'm not going to print that. We're going to go ahead and close that, and that is our flight. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I appreciate your support of the channel and your enthusiasm for the videos. You guys are awesome. Keep the comments coming. Keep the messages coming. I do have a Facebook page. Please go down and check that out. The link to it is in the description box below. Also, if you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. It doesn't do any damage to subscribe or anything like that. I don't spam people because I don't even know how. So please subscribe if you like the videos, because every time I see a subscription number go up, it makes me happy. And finally, check out my friend Darren Kent. And with that said, you guys have a lovely and beautiful day, and I will see you all next time. Phriq out.